Hello everyone and welcome to the Student Art Podcast. I'm your host Ross Baxter and today's is episode 11 of the series. We've got a great podcast ahead for you. We've got two incredible artists who are the founders of the Rookies Award. We've got Alwyn Hunt and Andrew McDonald. How's it going, guys? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, really good. Thanks for having us here, Ross. Always good to have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us on, Ross. Thanks.
Anytime. I'm really looking forward to hearing about your journey and basically what you guys do with the Rookies Award. And just when it comes to your journey, hearing about what you've done and so forth. So if you're new to the podcast, make sure to check it out. We're currently on Apple, Spotify, and many in the description below. So make sure to check it out. And one of the new things I'm trying to, promote when it comes to the Student Art Podcast is make sure more people start sharing their artwork. So it'd be great for anyone who's listening, especially on YouTube because there's the comment section and so forth, just to add your links in the description below. And basically what I'll do is at the end of each podcast, I'll start sharing everyone's work. So in today's podcast, what we're going to be discussing, like I said, is basically student education as always, but really bringing in the main focus of the Rookies Award and hearing about both their viewpoints on the subject. So I guess that we'll start off with the big questions first. Alwyn and Andrew, I'm not sure who wants to go first, but who just tell us a wee bit about yourself, what you do and so forth, and just Alwyn,
I'll jump
Andrew.
in.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Look, I mean, the history for me and what sort of led me to this is that I guess back in the day out of school, I sort of jumped in and wasn't too sure what I wanted to do, but I was sort of always felt I was a bit creative and technical. And what I ended up doing was deciding to go do product design, an industrial design course, which was just in Newcastle, Australia. And I think that was about a 4-year course. And over that period, I think not only did I sort of really discover this kind of passion for industrial design, but while that was all happening, this whole thing of sort of CG and all these big sort of movies that Pixar were working on and all this technology and sort of being able to render things on the computer, all that was starting to kind of happen. Mm-hmm. So I think what ended up happening for me was that I graduated from an industrial design degree, but I realized that straight after that I kind of didn't want to do industrial design. I went and did a bit of work, a bit of freelance work, and got a job at a pretty decent industrial design firm in Sydney. But, I thought I was going to be designing, really cool stuff for James Bond or bits of cars or whatever it was. But it ended up just designing stuff like the base of a kettle and, silly little pieces. And I was like, man, this is crazy. Like, I'm spending every minute I can trying to learn this new 3D stuff. And with the movies, I was like, my God, are people actually doing this for a living? This is crazy. So had to kind of tell my parents that, thanks for helping me, get my degree and having my back, but I'm going straight back and studying again and teaching myself how to learn this stuff.
Awesome.
So long story short, from there, I definitely was a self-taught artist. There just wasn't a big industry back then. There wasn't, all these schools, there weren't all these sort of studios and just even this social media and just this ability to connect and ability to see what's going on. There was just none of it. It was so basic. So, I mean, from that, I went through and actually decided to do a little bit of a course. Like I realized I had a good grounding. And then I thought, what courses are there? And I found a very short 12-week course that was local in Sydney. And that's actually where I met Alwyn for the first time. We both sort of crossed paths at that point. And then, from there, honestly, we both sort of ended up landing jobs. My sort of first job was just doing TV commercials and sort of little animations at a small studio in Sydney, Ambience Entertainment. And then I got my first kind of big gig on Happy Feet. That was my first kind of big film.
Awesome film. I love it. Good choice.
Yeah, like honestly, to this day, it's still like one of my most favorite experiences. Not like, you work on all these cool films and some are fun to work on and they're terrible at the box office and vice versa and all of that. But I think for me, that was still one of the best experiences in terms of just friends and, challenges and all that stuff. But so I think from there, I just worked through the ranks and sort of had a real focus on assets and modeling, and sort of started realizing I was kind of that was my jam. That was where I was good at. Was terrible at animation, was terrible at compositing, and that was kind of where I realized I was good. Then from there, sort of kicked off to London and helped out setting up a creature department up there for MPC. And then, spent a few years doing that. Ended up back in Oz at Animalogic again, just done loads of films to date. And I think on and off, probably done close to 20 films.
Wow.
And
awesome.
I think my last one is where I am now, which is actually in Singapore. Just finished up on Bumblebee, being a CG supervisor for that. So that was a bit of a fair step up and step across into a whole new world of
I'm so jealous.
Challenges for delivering films. But that was pretty cool. There's a pretty cool team here. I really underestimated how impressive the studio was, and in how sort of in touch you are with the director and the other supervisors at the other sites. So that's kind of where I am now. And I think all sort of behind that has been this Rookies, right? And we can get to chat about that, but that's kind of been the passion, and the driving force behind this whole thing, just trying to basically help other people that we've had our journey and we're still on it, but now we're trying to find out how to help everyone else.
That's where you've got to where you are now, through the great thing as well is what I've learned about, what I've read about both of you in terms of what I've learned is that you guys have done so much different things, and it's like you said, it's like that variation and all that different experience and so forth. Like you said, your modelling is like your go-to, and as you've obviously progressed further, you've now, I guess, found the Rookies Award, and that's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Perfect. Alwyn, if you'd like to go next, that'll be awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm still here. I was just going to, my story is slightly different. I mean, for me, I grew up in sort of small town New Zealand, and, visual effects and CG just wasn't even on the radar for me growing up as a kid and sort of leaving school. So when I left school, I just knew that I had to kind of move on from this small town, which was kind of like Twin Peaks. Growing up there, everyone knew everyone else's business. So, and I left, and really I had no direction about what I wanted to do. And I kind of stumbled into hospitality, to be honest, and then just started working as a kitchen hand in small restaurants, just trying to make ends meet after I'd left home. And I had a bit of a knack for it, and sort of started getting into the cooking side of things. And then I got offered to do an apprenticeship at a hotel there in Queenstown in New Zealand. And sort of, I got into hospitality. So I trained as a chef for a number of years, for 3 years, so I did an apprenticeship. And then with that profession, I sort of travelled overseas and, worked at a reasonably high level in London, in the UK there for a number of years.
Wow.
And then when I came back to Australia, for me, it was always about the creative process, the whole cooking side of things. I actually ended up specialising in patisserie and in desserts, and it was always kind of doing food art and margarine sculptures and chocolate sculptures and all that sort of stuff. And after I think it was 8 years in that industry, I kind of got disillusioned by the whole thing, and just realised that it just, I don't know, it's very antisocial hours. It's extremely tough occupation to have. But I knew that, like I said, it was always about the creative process. So I sort of threw caution to the wind and went back and applied for art school in Sydney, and managed to get in with a portfolio of my food art and sort of photos I'd taken during that time. And so I went and I was studying like traditional art for a couple of years. I really had no direction of where that was going to take me either, but I was earning enough money on the weekends, doing my chefing to be able to support myself. And I absolutely loved the traditional stuff, and it was a lot more sort of hands-on and tactile and all the rest of it. But during that time, that's when sort of the whole CG, computer graphics started kicking in Australia. And I remember watching something on TV, and it was promoting a course here in Sydney at the time. And when I seen that, I was like, that's what I wanted to do. And
That's
I
when
was
it
kind of
clicked.
like touching, getting more into computers with Photoshop and, photo manipulation and all the rest of it. So I was sort of, starting to get my hands dirty with that sort of stuff. And then this course, so I applied for this course, begged, borrowed, and stole money to be able to pay for the ridiculous fee that I think back now, but got onto it, and it was a 2-year course, an advanced diploma in computer graphics. So essentially, we were learning, Adobe Flash, Dreamweaver. We were learning Max. We were learning, just way too much software at the time, and really, because it was such a new course that a lot of the lecturers didn't even really know what they were doing. So the 3D side of it was, like I said, was 3D Studio Max. I finished that after 2 years, and really I had nothing to show for it. I just my portfolio was rubbish. I had incomplete work, and I had spent a lot of money, which I owed back, and I was just like, shit, where am I going from here?
Yeah.
So, luckily the course was enough for me to kind of fudge my way into like a creative consultant role for a large telco here in Australia.
Okay.
And, I was paid not bad, but really it wasn't, where I wanted to be again. I'd moved outside of the 3D stuff. But fortunately, there was a small post-production studio just down the road from where I was working in North Sydney. And I'd just go down there after work each day, and I sort of knocked on the door and just said, would you mind if I just watched what you guys did? And it was just kind of work experience, but they were fine with that. And with me going down there enough times and sort of annoying them, they sort of realised that I could do a little bit of the 3D. And during that time, that's when I sort of thought, I need to sort of train, get more skilled, because it was, everyone was talking about Maya at the time, and that was kind of the backbone of visual effects and all the rest of it. So, and that's when I met Macca on that course that he mentioned earlier on. So that's when we sort of crossed paths at that point.
That's when it began.
And then that's where it sort of all began, right? So, I was rubbish, and I was kind of bludging off him, and he was always miles ahead of me, but it was good to have him there supporting me while I was doing it. But yeah, and then he sort of got his big break, and then I sort of got one little job under my belt, and it was all about, and because I'd already been through that process of knowing what to do to get a job, so I knew I had to network. I knew I had to get just one job underneath my belt, so I could then leverage off that to try and get the next one. So really, I didn't land the big job. I didn't get the job at Animal Logic straight away. For me, it was a few more years of just grafting it out in TVC production houses, and then once I had enough work, then I applied for Animal, and I didn't work on Happy Feet. I was working in the TVC division at the time. So I think the first show that I worked on there was House of Flying Daggers,
right,
which was actually on TV here the other night. So it was funny watching that again. But
reflecting in the past.
So reflecting, mate, and then. Yeah, and then for me it was because once you get a couple of gigs under your belt and you've got some experience in some of those bigger studios, then it's a hell of a lot easier to sort of start applying for jobs overseas, or you've got momentum at that point. Then I headed off to Canada, chasing a young lady over there. So I sort of sold up everything here and headed across there. And then I got a call from Macca, and that's when he was saying that he was setting up the asset department at MPC there in London. And I had already actually been there through my cooking days, and I wasn't really keen on going back there. But my girlfriend, my partner now, still is my partner, but she had never experienced London. So I said, let's go, let's do a year and, have some fun. You can see London, and we can, work at MPC at the same time. So that year actually turned into 6.5 years of me staying there.
Gee whiz, right, okay.
And, it sucked us in. So I was at MPC and DNEG, and then I did a short stint over in LA at Sony Imageworks there for a little bit. But yeah, it was during that time when we were at MPC working, together that's when the whole catalyst of the Rookies really sort of started. Back when we sort of got approached by a university down there.
That's amazing.
And that was the start of the journey really for the Rookies.
Thank you for both sharing that. That was incredible. I did not expect that. That's awesome. It's like it's always the cool things. Obviously, when you first obviously meet new people and stuff, and especially when it comes to art, you never know what to expect. Like people's different paths are because everyone's different, and that was great. Like especially when you're saying about obviously one of your first initial passions was obviously food and so forth and cooking. I did not expect that. That's great. So obviously when it comes to obviously the Rookies Award, obviously once you guys have found I guess your grounding, did the Rookies Award start I guess like you said in the UK, or did you guys transition back to Australia, or like where did it all begin when it came to I guess just kick-starting in a way?
Well, the Rookie Awards never sort of launched directly as the Rookie Awards. We sort of stumbled into it in a little way. As Alwyn said, we sort of got approached by, a couple of universities when we were working in London to say, hey, can you come down, check out our students, have a chat, give a demo, give some feedback, do all that type of thing. And, we were really keen on that, but, working full time, trying to balance that, travel, it's just like, can we work out another way to do this? So I sort of suggested an idea that we just set up a website using Blogger, of all things, back in the day, and just ask students at these universities to submit their work. And then we jump on and give that feedback. And that proved like super successful. And that's when, I sort of did the first one. I was like, my God, Alwyn, this thing's like awesome. They want more people. Let's do this proper. Let's go back to them with a plan. Let's figure this out together and just, kind of trying to build a business out of this and trying to give something back. So that's when we sort of launched into CG Coach. And that was our first proper kind of community platform that was really trying to target students and allow them to kind of connect with industry. So we had all the friends and the network that we were working with, the professionals, and we were where these students wanted to go, but there was still this massive divide. So the goal with CG Coach was like, hey, submit your work, share it, and let the community give you some feedback, but we'll also have our coaches, which were the professionals, to actually give some legit, honest feedback that was sort of a bit more related to industry. So once that started evolving, we got quite a community. We still started noticing this thing where all these schools kept on saying, oh man, our students are the best. And we're like, you know what, they're pretty good, but have you seen, this university down the road? I actually think they're kind of maybe a little bit better. So with that in mind, we sort of thought, well, let's go head to head, right? Let's find a competitive, fun way to actually let everyone submit their student work. We will get professionals. We will judge it based on how sort of how successful their portfolio is in, how sort of well that comes across in terms of trying to get them a job. Because up until then, like the schools, they're still giving sort of the diplomas and the degrees based on how you perform in the school. That doesn't necessarily always translate to how well that sort of sets you up for a job. So we were trying to come from it and say, yeah.
Do you mean like as in like grade based, basically?
Yes.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
So they'd come out and we'd have all these people come to us to apply for jobs and go, hey, I just got a distinction down the road at this university. And you're like, you know what? You ticked all the boxes, you did all the curriculum, but there's a massive divide here. And that was kind of one of the driving forces that frustrated Alwyn and myself when we're trying to employ these students. And there was just such a disconnect. So that's kind of when we realized that there was something bigger. And our first, it was actually called CG Student Awards. That was our first kind of...
That was the first name?
Contest. Yes. And look, that thing kind of blew up, like just got loads of schools involved. All these sponsors were sort of keen to kind of participate and see what was going on. Recruiters were loving it. It just kind of took off. And I think we sort of managed that for a few years, and then, we rolled into quite a big change where we just wanted to sort of separate the community a little and really drill down into this amazing contest. And that's when we kind of launched the Rookie Awards. And now we're kind of even on this trajectory where we're about to launch our biggest platform yet, which goes live next month, which is basically it's a platform for artists that are trying to get discovered, but they don't want that distraction, or the professionals taking all the attention away from them. So we've got this huge community platform that's going to let students submit their work. The Rookie Awards will go live through there, but there'll just be a bigger community aspect, because the biggest thing we noticed with the Rookie Awards was that we sort of asked everyone to come across. We said, hey, this is awesome. Show us all your work. We'll give you some feedback from, industry professionals. We'll give you jobs. We'll give you internships. We'll give you prizes. We'll give you all this great stuff. And then we'd say, oh, okay, we've just done that year's awards. We need to reset and start again. So we had to kind of delete everyone's work.
And then just start fresh again.
Yeah, and that was just because there was so many reasons for that, just trying to manage that and deal with it. And we didn't have that platform to be able to allow people to stay there. And that really sort of wasn't fair. We had people that were students that sort of graduated and had this chance, and they still needed another chance, and they didn't have anywhere to go, and they'd go to these professional platforms. I mean, they're everywhere, but they get lost there. And they really sort of pushed us to go, you know what, I like what you guys are doing at the Rookies. Why can't I stay with you? I'm not a professional yet. I want to be here. So that's kind of been a massive journey for us, like in that last year of building this platform and trying to find that sort of balance that works.
Like, one of the main things, I guess, because I graduated just over a year ago, and so my main thing is environment art, and I guess the biggest thing I've always felt that the student education has always been behind in is basically, it's exactly what you've just said there, is that grades have always been, I guess, based on what I've been taught, is that grades never really mattered in terms of when it comes to getting that job. Obviously, the one advantage it always has is the fact that if you want to go abroad, the visa comes into play. So obviously you need the visa, and you need that degree to get the visa. But when it came to, I guess, portfolios and stuff, it's always been at the end of the day down to the quality. And like you're saying, when it comes to what you're trying to get across with the Rookies Award, is making sure that students get, I guess, the attention that they deserve based on their artwork. And I guess also one of the other hard things is that because in student education there's so many different areas, so there's concept art, there's environment art, there's people doing UI design, there's all these different areas. And obviously with the Rookies Award, to anyone's listening, it's not just 3D, there's all these different options that you can showcase your work. I'm not sure when you first started the Rookies Award, did you guys initially have maybe just a few areas that you wanted to target, or was it literally, right, let's just go at it full on, let's get everything kind of covered, or was it concept art and 3D art kind of based when you originally started?
You can take that one, Kiwi.
I'm just trying to remember back, but I mean, for us, it's always been about computer-generated imagery, right? So, we did have a big focus on visual effects in games, because obviously that's our background and that's what we're familiar with. Mm-hmm. So during the years, we've sort of expanded out and sort of aligned ourselves more with other industries that have a CG focus now as well. So I think the good thing, or not the good thing, but the thing that we're seeing happening is that with games, with art, with 3D motion, a lot of the technology behind these different industries now are all crossing over and merging. So it's really great to see that we've got people that are using the same software but in a different industry and the different results, and it's really great to see that difference. I think one of the big things for us this year, just going back to a point that Andrew said about the Rookie Awards and how we're supporting the community, is that this year we're also opening it up to people that are self-taught and also complete novices. We've got a lot of people out there like Andrew himself, who was self-taught, who didn't do any structured curriculum, and that are doing amazing work. So we're like, well, how can we isolate them and not include them as part of this as well? So we're really looking forward to seeing what that comparison is of people that are self-taught and people that have gone through the more traditional route. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. But yeah. So yeah, I think and there was there was a couple. When we were CG Student Awards, we were looking at expanding out. Well, we did look at expanding out even further into photography and robotics and some other different areas that sort of we felt like we went too far. So now I think we found our niche a little bit with the categories that we do have, and we're really enjoying the content that people are submitting to it, and we think it's a good spot at the moment.
Awesome. Because, I guess when it comes to almost like the term industry standard in a way, it was what I was saying to you there earlier before we started, Alwyn, is basically, to anyone's listening, the Rookies Award has basically become, I guess, the foundation for myself as an artist in terms of being able to identify where I am skill set wise. And it's provided me with that, I guess, almost like a service to just almost give me the correct information, because one of the hardest things, I guess, for you as a student is to know where you're at in terms of how do I compare myself to other people in the industry. And with the Rookies Award, it really provides you with this, I guess it's straight to the point, and it's a very honest feedback. And the people that you guys bring in, obviously over the years you've brought in so many different, it's not mentors, what's the words, judges in a way?
Yeah, judges. Yeah, it's judges.
So you guys have got for example, I remember you had John Howe, I think it was last year, who's a concept artist, who was a concept artist for Weta, who did Lord of the Rings, and there's all this different variation that you guys have brought on. And I guess, so what my point is the fact that I'm getting the right information, and it's now letting me progress forward. So that's why I've always said to anyone who is listening, make sure to check it out, because they have a grading system, and this critique, or the way they critique things, it really provides you with just that stepping stone in the right direction in terms of, right, so where do I have to go in terms of, right, I need to get better at my 3D, I need to get better at this, and on top of this as well, there's articles as well on the website to teach you as well. So it's not just a service for critique, but it's also a teaching platform. And because of all this service the Rookies Award provides you, it's really good. It's a good Kickstarter just to get your first step into the industry. So
yeah,
I mean, that's a great summary. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I think just jumping in there, Alwyn, you nailed it on the head with that whole thing of being able to easily let everyone see who else is out there on that same journey. They're all trying to get into industry. So I think that was one of the biggest things for me back in the day, when you'd go talk to students at a school and you'd go, right, who's the best student here? Who do you reckon here is going to get a job? And they'd always point to, 2 or 3 people and go, my God, they're amazing. And then, you'd go, okay, well, who's the best person in Sydney, or London? And they just go, I have no idea. And they just weren't even thinking beyond their classroom. I'm like, especially in London, where you've got so many schools in such a tight-knit area, and even people in Europe that can be applying for the same job. It's like, guys, you need to be really thinking about who's your competition, who's graduating, who's looking for a job right now, and go have a look at the level, because that's what the recruiters are looking at. And that's your comparison, and it's just such an easy platform to go see that.
And like you said, Ross, it's a benchmark for a lot of people, and it's a lot more than that as well. For us, we've always said it's not about winning Rookie of the Year award. I mean, that is that's amazing, but for us, the biggest thing is trying to install confidence in students to get their work up online, right? Because this is the first time that they're actually going to get their work. So instead of putting it on one of these larger platforms where you are kind of really intimidated by all the professional work, it's like, well, actually, this is like Andrew said, this is my competition. Now, where do I sit with these guys that are going to be competing with the same job that I'm going to be going for? So if you've got to build that confidence to be able to get your work out there, get it seen by recruitment, and, not be scared to get that feedback, right? Because that's what happens every day to us once we get in the industry. We're always getting critique. So there's that installing the confidence. What was the other thing I thought? Yeah, the benchmark. There was a couple of other things I just that
I mean,
slipped me.
I think the big one for me as well is, I mean, you were saying that, you know, it's not about winning the awards, and that's such a big thing. And I think we've always put a lot of emphasis on that. But I think when I look back at it, the biggest success stories for me are the ones who didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they didn't even come like in the maybe even a finalist, but someone found them and they got the confidence to do this. They got involved. They got out there, and someone saw their work, and you know, they ended up changing their life just from that, from taking a chance. And if you ask any of the people that even got in the draft or became a finalist or a winner, like honestly, majority just like, I cannot believe I actually got that far. I did not expect it. I wasn't even planning on entering. And that's the coolest thing for us, you know.
Of course, it's the rewarding thing at the end of the day, because it's like, it's crazy. Maybe it's just because, so one of the things I've always noticed, I'm pretty sure both of you have noticed this as well, but so for example, my my whole growing up was basically sport, so my background's always been related to, I guess, competing, getting myself out there and trying different things. And when I initially, I guess, jumped into the whole idea of art and so forth, the one thing that was very noticeable to me was the like what your typical artist is like, and in terms of like the mentality and so forth. And I understand that a lot of people, I guess, are shy and maybe scared to share their work and stuff, and it can be quite intimidating when you're initially starting out, because everyone obviously, like you said, when you ask the question like who's the best in the class, or when people are comparing themselves, people obviously they tend to overthink it, and they begin to get stressed out and so forth. But there's nothing like the main point I'm trying to get across here is that there's nothing wrong with sharing your work, and it's the main thing that the Rookies Award provides you. And like you said, the main goal at the end of the day is to get yourself out there and is to get that feedback in the right direction. And I guess it's like when I said right at the start, everyone who's listening, share your artwork. Like, I'm not going to be harsh to critique anyone, because I'm still miles behind where I want to go, but I know by me getting my work out there, I've been able to get the feedback that I need to progress further. And it just takes that first step. So,
and the thing is, on that point, you're getting the feedback from people that are just a few steps further on that journey and that skill level, right?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
That's kind of the emphasis on this Rookies platform, or this community, because everyone had no experience at one point, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone was there. Everyone just did their first little rendering or their first little animation and just was like, oh my God, how cool is this? You know, and then you get out there and you see everyone doing things 100 times better, but everyone's been at that point. So I think everyone relates to that. So what we find, especially on this community that's really not for professionals, it's like there's so much more supportive. It's like, you know what, that's so cool. Do these few things. You know, this is how I handled that problem back in the day. And I think it's such a, you know, it's such a great little sort of knock-on effect.
Yep. I remember, obviously the main focus isn't necessarily just like the idea of competition. Like, obviously it's the smaller things that we've discussed, or not smaller things, like the bigger things, like getting yourself out there. But in terms of what the Rookies Award offers, can you guys talk about, I guess, maybe like the internship side of things, in terms of what you can achieve if you are maybe a bit more further ahead in terms of skill set wise?
Yeah, I think, you know, like the opportunity with the internships is always really interesting, because it's that, you know, like Andrew said, it's that first step into a studio. And even when you're doing an internship, it's like, what does that even mean? You know, like what's that process? Is there an onboarding process? Is there an induction process? Am I going to be thrown in the deep end? Like, what is that? And to be honest, it varies from studio to studio. I think, you know, what we've seen with the internships and the amazing studio sponsors that we've had on board, you know, over the past 10 years is that, you know, all the studio sponsors have been, you know, really, really fantastic at setting these internships up. And a lot of the people that have gone through those internships, it's opened a lot of doors for them. And we have, you know, amazing success stories of people that are still working at some of these studios from that, you know, initial internship. You know, we have, you know, I was listening to the guys from Flip Normals the other day who do an amazing job. Their content is fantastic, and, you know, it's great to see them really coming to the fore with their content. They went through the Rookies. They both got internships, and they, you know, from that sort of help them, flourish into where they are today, and it's things like that for us it's creating those opportunities and knowing that the studio sponsors that we have on board, we've got the confidence that they're going to do a fantastic job of looking after these students and not just sort of leaving them in the lurch and making sure that they're going to be, working ridiculous hours and paid next to nothing. So,
yep.
We really do make sure that they are sort of vetted and they have a program, and, all our internships are paid for. Like, we've never done an internship where no one's ever got paid.
Mm-hmm.
So we all, for all the right reasons. But yeah, I think what else was it? Yeah, the internships. And this year we've also got some scholarships. So, we started that last year and that proved to be very successful. Mm-hmm. And really what schools are looking for, they're not looking for the rock stars. They're looking for somebody, like, we were saying before, that maybe has just got an interest in it, that's got a few bits and pieces in their portfolio that they've managed to do from home, a little render here or there, but it's showing that potential, and, to be able to get a scholarship in some of these schools, like, that really is going to propel them into the industry and getting their first steps into that. So we're really excited. I mean, there's a whole certification area as well that we're developing. I'm not too sure if you want to talk about that, Andrew, or did you want to touch on that?
Oh, look, I mean, we can kind of touch on it. I mean, we won't go into too much depth because that is a pretty massive thing that we're undertaking at the moment. But I think the idea behind certification is that we're really trying to fine tune and create a very detailed list of skills that everyone needs before they start applying for jobs. Because I think that is still such a blurry sort of line. Like, people, we consistently see people come out of school and go, right, here's my portfolio. And they walk up to you and go, can you review my demo reel? And then they're expecting you to go, yeah, absolutely. And you go, well, hang on, what job are you going for? What are you thinking about this? And you ask them a few questions and they're kind of just completely thrown. I mean, you give them feedback on their demo reel, but it makes it really obvious that they're not really sure what they need to be shown. So the idea of certification is to really give that clear list of, hey, if you're a modeler, these are the 5 core skills you absolutely must be able to showcase in your portfolio or demo reel. So we've been working on that for a little while. We've got some great studios sort of backing us with that. And, that's a really exciting one, because it's that frustration that we can see that they're still unsure. And then, if we can help sort of standardize that and really create an open source document that can be updated and, let anyone see it, anyone who's graduating, anyone who's self-taught, or anyone even thinking about sort of, a career in this, it's a bit more of a simple sort of list. We sort of refer to it as, you got lawyers who have to pass the bar, right?
Yeah,
it's a very clear list, and that's easy because it's not creative. It's a very knowledge-based sort of list, and we want to be able to sort of simplify that for a very creative and technical industry, which is a bit complicated. But that's definitely something coming that we're excited about.
I think, like, when it comes to, like, I'm really glad you guys have brought it up, because when it comes to obviously tailoring in the subject of student education, is that obviously, so when it comes to student education sort of part of the podcast, I always ask the same main questions, but I guess, so one of the advantages I always had when I was in university is that I always knew what I wanted to do, and that played a huge, that just, I guess, made things 10 times easier in terms of, I guess, my classmates and so forth. And because I've always wanted to be a 3D modeler and environment artist, literally since year 1 of my education. So I live in Scotland, and so I went to a place called Abertay University, and when I first started there, I was able to, like, almost get, what's the word, just I guess have a chance to kind of step back and be more relaxed, because everyone was always trying to, I guess, identify where they wanted to go. And it plays such a big part in, I guess, when you finish university, if you don't know the question, things, obviously it takes longer because you don't know what's happening. You start making certain decisions that you're not 100% sure of, and it's like you said there, because obviously having this list of I guess what you need to do and what you need to know in order to get where you want to go, it makes it so much easier, and it gives you that ground. And I think when it comes to just student education as a whole, one of the hardest things is, I guess, trying to get people's voice out and trying to identify the truth in terms of behind their passion and stuff. And I guess it'd be great to talk about your guys' thoughts on student education. So I guess just starting off with one of the questions, what would be like one of the things you wish you learnt while studying at university? Is there anything that you think would have helped propel you guys forward while you were studying?
I mean, well, look, I mean, for me, because I really didn't study, I mean, I did a 12-week course after, I guess, teaching myself for quite a lot of time. But I think the thing I see these days is I, you know, and touching on a few of the things you just mentioned there, one of the big things for me is that I find that it is a tough job for a school to set a really good curriculum. Mm-hmm. It's very hard because often they'll go very broad, and I understand you need to get the basics. People need to understand the full pipeline. They need to understand a lot of things. But I think the trap they fall into is that they do throw 20, 30 softwares at people, and they do throw this whole overwhelming pipeline of possibilities that, you know, a lot of people don't know what they want to do. Like, they don't know if they want to specialize or be a generalist or whatever it is. So I think it's really important to, you know, be able to take someone who's a student, and if you are on a 3-year course, one of the things I'd love to see schools teach people is to help them discover what's going to make them more employable, to go, you know what, I've been watching you for the last year or two, and I reckon you have such a good eye for lighting and compositing, okay? So I want you in this last year, instead of you deciding what you're going to do and you coming up with some random projects, like, I want to help you focus on that. And I want you to start thinking about the companies that will employ someone like this, and vice versa with modeling or whatever it is. Because the biggest mistake I always see students do is they come and they just get a free rein to create any major project. And they come up with these crazy ideas to go, I'm going to design 4 characters. It's going to be a 5-minute interactive, blow everything up scene, and I'm going to have photorealistic things. And you just realize that you would have been better off just doing one asset or one animation or whatever it is, like tone it way back and do that really well. And I think that's what I think schools, like, some do it very well, and you can see the difference, and there's still a lot of schools that just don't understand how to help a student at that level.
Definitely, because like one of the things that I struggled with was, I've always wanted to get into film, and the hardest part was I guess identifying, so in my portfolio, what do I need? And when I initially, obviously it was starting out, I was always getting told, right, so you need to make 3D environments, and you have to get to a certain skill set, so getting your high poly, getting your low poly, being able to UV, texture, and so forth, and it had to simply be at the standard that it had to be at in terms of in relation to the studio that you went to. But the thing that put me off was, because I was asking a few different studios the same question, I was getting different results in terms of people were telling me different things. So one of the hardest things I struggled with was that one studio was telling me that all they wanted was basically like props, and being able to make props to such a high level, like just to show that they were good enough, to show that I could do the workflow. And then the other studio was saying we need a full fleshed out environment. And I think the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when you guys are talking about this, like almost like a critique sort of, or like a checklist of what you need to do, a lot of people, I guess, obviously it depends on the studio that you go to, but it'll be so much easier for, I guess, students and lecturers, or lecturers, to be honest, just to give like very concise information to make it easier. But it's so hard because obviously there's so many different industries and stuff. So that's always been one of the main questions and subjects that I've brought up when it comes to the Student Art Podcast. Is obviously teachers can only do so much, and it's trying to get that balance for all these different, I guess, professions. So it's it's
you're on the money there. I mean, I think for me, it's like it is very true. It's a difficult thing to try and figure out, and studios are always going to have a different opinion. But I think at the core of it, you know, a lot of those sort of suggestions or requirements by studios might come based on a show that they've had come in the door. So they're like, you know what, I don't want to see anything other than these three things right now, just to get the noise away and just really fine tune the type of artist they're trying to hire. So there's a whole lot of layers at play here, but I think the thing that drives us with this certification is just seeing people share their portfolio and their demo reel and think they're ready, but there's just really core things that they're not showing, and we know they can do them, but they don't realize that that actually is part of the job, to get in and be a part of a team and sort of help you progress. Like, if you don't have the fundamentals, you know, it doesn't matter what software you know, like, it's just not going to help you.
Yep. I'm not sure. Also, Alwyn, I think you were going to say something as well. You would like to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, for us, we always see the certification, you know, it has to be driven by industry, right? Because it's evolving at such a rate, and you know, like you said, there's conflicting sort of, I guess, not opinions, but conflicting information about what is required when you're applying for jobs. So, you know, through the certification, when we're setting up these different job descriptions and what those, you know, top requirements are, like if we've got, you know, several studios that are saying the same things, it's kind of trying to standardize that.
Yeah.
And we see that as kind of being the blueprint for schools to be able to look at and go, okay, cool, that's what I need to be doing. That's the software I need to be doing for that type of role, right? So it's actually, we're kind of in the middle, but with sort of the, you know, we're sort of like holding on to that information for both the studios and for the schools to be able to give feedback, but also to kind of, you know, we're just kind of managing it, I guess you'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I think that's the key point, right? I mean, that information can't come from us. Like, we can obviously drive a lot of the criteria for it, but the absolute sign off has to come from industry. It has to come from the studios. That's the big thing here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, like, it's like you said. On you go. Sorry.
No, sorry. Carry on, Ross.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's like what you said. You guys were saying earlier about when it comes to identifying like the studio that you want to get into, like it makes it easier. Like, obviously, well, I guess I'm not sure what your thoughts are when it comes to tailoring to a certain studio, because when I was doing my podcast yesterday, so a lot of my different guests, obviously people have their different opinions on like their approach and stuff, but would you say, like for me personally, I've always believed in tailoring it to a studio that obviously you're passionate about. So like for me, it's Weta Digital and like Framestore and stuff, because obviously they're like Harry Potter, they're the films that I love. I'm not sure what do you think tailoring to a certain studio is a good thing?
I think, you know, you got to look at it, you know, in depth when you're looking at places like ILM and Weta Digital. And yes, you can tailor it, but there's more to it than that. You know, I know for a fact that they won't hire anyone with less than 5 years experience, you know, that unless it's a local junior, then, so you've got to approach it from a different angle and go, okay, well, I need to get those 5 years experience in a top studio before I can even start. I think, and it just raised a sort of a point before that I was thinking about, is managing expectations when you're a student. I think, you know, we see a lot of success stories out there, and like people, and it's good to have goals, but you've got to be able to reverse engineer where you're going and being realistic about it. And like you said, you know, when we were talking earlier, Ross, is, you know, your dream of getting to Weta Digital, and that's fantastic, but it's like, you know, you've worked based in Scotland, so you've got to look at, okay, where have I got to go? We talked about Axis, which is a fantastic studio.
Yep.
And then from Axis, where you probably have to head to London, you'll probably have to get to one of the top ones down there and start really, before you even think about applying for Weta Digital, right? And then you can start thinking about, well, how am I going to tailor my reel? And maybe, and a lot of it's to do with timing, you know, maybe they're working on a show that is similar to one that you're working on London, and they'll go, oh, that's cool, you know, and you don't have to do any additional work. You might just roll into it. A lot of it is timing. A lot of it's, you know, luck in some ways as well, because even if you had that work, they might not have the position. You know, there might be a recruiter that you were talking to last year that has left this year, and your stuff has gone off the radar. So there's there's multiple fronts that you've got to be looking at, but managing your expectations, I think, is really important first and foremost, because you're going to, and it's like my journey. I got disheartened with the whole thing, and it took me ages to get in, but I knew what the journey was because I'd been through an industry before. So it's like it's one step at a time, and celebrate that one step when you do get it, right?
Yeah.
And really, sorry, go ahead, Macca.
No, I'm in complete agreement. I mean, we're obviously on the same page, but I think it's a great point of that expectation. When you really look at it, and if you're, say, trying to focus on visual effects, and yes, you want to hit some of the top few sort of famous companies, like you are, especially at the junior levels, you are not going to come in and suddenly be the modeler or the lighter or the compositor on the hero characters or shots. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to happen. You've got to think that there's all these other professionals that have got so much more experience at that company, on other shows and all this stuff that are in line for that. You've got to think, okay, how can I support these people? How can I show that I've got the skill to support these people? I mean, it's that thing where, you were saying before that some of these studios were saying, we just want someone to do assets like props. Yep. And that makes total sense.
Yep.
Because you've got the lead character designer, you've got the lead environment person, you've got the lead lighter. They've got their task. They need the support. So I think it's really important, that expectation. Don't think you need to be able to do it at that level. Like, that's the target, that's the end game, but show how you can even just do elements that are going to help improve that and show that sort of knowledge. And I think coming back to your original kind of question about sort of adapting how you apply for jobs and, trying to figure out how you make your portfolio or demo reel sort of adapted to a particular studio, I think it's really important. It's really not, you can have one demo reel or portfolio, but there's no point in sharing, live action integration or whatever it is to a studio that's feature animation based. Mm-hmm. They're looking for artists that have a passion and have content that's related to their project. And if I think back to the amount of people I've hired, there's been, as Alwyn said, there's timing. And I look at someone's work and I'm like, oh my God, you just built a really cool, asset for whatever it was. And we're doing this show now that's coming in the door that's sort of similar. I can totally see you fitting in. So I'm glad you adapted and showed me that stuff and not all this other sort of old work or, animation based or vice versa. So it is a really easy thing to do now. And I think it's also the thing about sort of building that relationship with the recruiters to make sure that they're aware of what new things you've done or aware of your history and what you're trying to do and how you can fit into that team, because that's the goal.
That's one thing.
That's another.
Go.
I was just going to say, it's another sort of area that we really stress to students is the networking side of things as well.
Definitely. You're
fortunate enough in the UK that there's lots of events going on, but it's actually, getting to know these recruiters so that when you do start applying, they're like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. And you've got an opening sort of sentence going, I met you at FMX, or I met you at the VFX and Creatures drink that was organised in France, or whatever it may be. There's the networking side of things we can't stress enough, because there's, you can have the most amazing portfolio, but again, if you haven't got it out there, either through our platform or wherever it may be, and you haven't got yourself out there in a social capacity where a recruiter goes, actually, that Ross guy, he's a really lovely guy. He's very passionate.
Oh, thank you very much.
Still got a bit of ways to go. Still got a bit of way to go on his demo reel, but, he's a hell of a nice guy.
I'm loving it.
He slipped me a 50. Yeah, but so networking is hugely important as well.
But on that, we just did a really big survey. Every year we go do a survey and ask a very similar question that you asked us, like what do we feel is the biggest thing missing from that I wanted out of my schooling and education that I didn't get. And one of the biggest ones is networking events and that connection to industry. That was by far the biggest one. And it was all looped into this thing of, I want to understand more about sort of the soft skills, the networking. How do I network and get a good connection at an event? And how do I interview and how do I do it? It's the soft skills. And that's such a big focus for us, even with this certification, because that is not taught enough. And even if their school's doing it well, it's clearly the minority, because they're so focused on just getting people to push buttons with software and not thinking about the big picture.
Yeah, like it's crazy because like, for example, me reaching out to you guys, like for example, if I didn't ask you guys, just like for example, the main thing my dad's always preached to me was never be afraid to ask questions, and I've always believed in helping and sharing as much as possible, and but I wouldn't have been able to reach you guys if I simply didn't learn growing up, or I guess even through education, I guess to get that bit of confidence to, I guess, ask. And one of the main things, I guess, that's really hard to kind of drill into people is obviously like the networking and so forth. It plays such a huge part, but it's like that just initial confidence. And it's like, for example, with the Rookies Award, it's like your goal is to get people to have the confidence to share their work, and bringing back also the subject of expectation as well, is obviously to understand that it takes time, like you said, and it is like it's a journey. It's not just going to happen overnight. And like you said about, like for example, my journey, one of the biggest reality checks that I had was right. Obviously, I want to get to WETA, and I have this sort of dream. But I've literally only learned this in the last few years. But it's like never undermine and never I guess how am I going to say this? It's like the smaller studios matter as well. Like all these other places, they do play a part.
Honestly, it all matters. It all matters. Like one of the biggest things that we all realize, like after you've been in these industries for a while, is that they are tiny. Honestly, it doesn't matter whether you're games, animation, visual effects, VR, whatever. It is all small. Like everyone really does know everyone. And if you get a bad reputation, people just aren't going to want to be a part and work with you. They're not going to approach you to be a part of your team, because at the end of the day, like when you get asked to come interview for a job, you've already shown to a recruiter that yes, I've got a level of ability here. But the key with an interview is that the person interviewing is just trying to figure out, can you communicate? Are you a nice person? Are you arrogant? Can you take a bit of direction? Can you, they want to know about you. And that's the biggest thing. Like a lot of people get very stressed about their interviews, and it's like you've proven you have some skill. We want to just have a chat about how you did a few of those things. We want to sort of really dig into a bit of your knowledge, but we're also not expecting you to know everything. But the crux of it is, it's like what type of person you are. And it's funny, it wasn't in this podcast, but Ross asked us before, like, what's your favorite film? We were just doing a little audio test, and that's actually a question I ask in my interviews.
Right, okay, awesome.
And it gets this reaction of people getting really quite, oh my God, I don't know how to answer this, and I don't want to say
the pressure,
like this one or this one, because they're going to, and I'm like, this isn't a trick question.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's just to find out a little bit more about you. That's it.
It's like everyone, like it's like I said, like the one advantage that I had was that when I grew up was that I've always been used to talking to people and stuff, and I think everyone has this sort of cloud on top of them, or like there's so much pressure that they think that it's the end of the world if they make like even just a stutter when it comes to an interview. Because I had an interview I think 5 weeks ago, and everyone in my family was stressing out, and I was just like, I'm super chill, I can't wait, I'm looking forward to it because I get to talk about 3D and I get to geek about it, get to be myself. And my sister and my dad were like, right, you got to get this job, get this job. And I was like, it's okay. It's just like there's these people aren't going to judge me based off like me like not saying like if I make a little mistake. Obviously, like I want to make a good impression and it's very important, but I think people have to realize it's okay to make mistakes, and it's like accepting that failure and just going with the flow, because it's there's nothing.
And I think
to stress
it's
about.
it's a big thing as well. Like to go for an interview, you should stop for a minute and congratulate yourself on that invite.
Yeah.
That's huge. Because a recruiter doesn't have time to waste with people that they don't feel have the core skills, right? They don't have time to hang out and chat and interview 50 people. They are going through all these portfolios. They're using their network of people that they've met at events. They're bringing together a very, very small list of people. And they want to, they're ready to hire someone. It's that final hurdle. So I think it's that point of like, congratulations, you know what? Pat yourself on the back. That's an achievement. If you don't get it, there could be 10 reasons that just were why you didn't get it, but it could be timing. It could just be that, you know what, on the day there was a better candidate, but you got in the game, you've got a foot in, and hopefully everything goes right from there.
Yep. So when it comes to the Student Art podcasts, obviously, so we've covered a lot of different things when it comes to student education, and I normally always end the Student Art podcasts with the same question. This is kind of like, it's funny, I always say the same sort of like words. I always say it's like, it's not a controversial question, but it's like, it's just basically it's like, I've always talked about online courses versus education and understanding when one's better than the other. But I was wondering, if you guys could chip in basically on when it's better to do online courses or when it's better to like university. Like, do you have like a preferred like sort of journey, or obviously it's not, normally the answer's always been it depends, which I understand. But I just wondered what your thoughts are on the sort of debate.
I'm going to jump right in with that one because I like that question, and I haven't been asked it before. But honestly, to me, it's purely down to the person. You know, I look at the comparison, I guess, directly between myself and my wife. My wife needs to go to a school. She needs to be surrounded by people. She needs to have that very clear, day one is this, day two is this. And this is why she's a producer, right? She just loves that process and that schedule. But for me, I feel like I could see the benefit, and I've obviously done university for industrial design and I enjoyed that. But I think there are people that really work well by studying online, and there are some killer courses out there these days. These are proper courses with proper mentoring, and we've actually just launched a new platform at the Rookies called Discover. It's basically to help you discover everything you need for a career. So one of our biggest things there is to actually go and find these schools that we've kind of ranked from all our rookie awards sort of scoring. And there are some great courses on there. So you can jump onto there, which is discover.therookies.co. And that we've already got a whole list of some of the top online courses there that you can check out. And honestly, I think I've seen some great people go through, and whether it was just that course that was online just to give them the finishing touches, or whether it was like, you know what, I had a great grounding and I just needed a nice course, whether it was 12 weeks or 12 months just to get me to the next level. And either I wasn't in the right country, or I couldn't afford to go over there, or my timing because I was working another job. I think there's a real cool thing going on with some online courses, but it's purely down to the person and sort of what's going on with them.
Awesome. Also, another thing would be great to hear about is because obviously you have both your journeys and stuff. But one of the questions I was actually wanting to ask Alwyn was just, so when you obviously were doing like cooking, you're doing design for food and stuff. Obviously I take it online courses played a big part as well when it came to you. When it came to, I guess, finding what you needed to know. Is there anything particular that's helped you out, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, online courses, there weren't a large amount of them going around, like actually when I was back in my cooking days. I mean, there was
I don't think there was even one. Was there?
I'm not that old.
I don't know if there was.
Take it easy. There was Noman, and we have a bit of a laugh. Yeah, they had dial-up. They did. But we have a bit of a laugh with Alex at Noman, because he was one of the first guys to start doing the DVDs and really getting tutorials happening sort of mainstream out, online, I guess.
Okay.
So to be honest, for me it was either do a proper course, but I mean, having said, look at it now, and if I reflect back on that, and I think Macca really did summarize it all. It comes down to the person. Awesome. And if I was to add on to that, I'd just really say, do your homework.
Yep.
And this is the reason why we have kind of launched Discover, is because of, you know, what we've discovered through the rookie rankings and where we see the best students coming from. And it's purely to us, that's what it's based on, is the quality of that end result. We're not looking at their certification or any of that sort of business. It's going, what is their past? What is that demo reel? How does, you know, is that going to get them a job in the industry? And, you know, that's the whole premises behind, you know, the rankings. And, you know, that's why we've put a lot of effort into actually being able to give this information back to people, because we get asked every week, every day almost, like, where's the best school I can send my son to in, you know, North America or in, you know, Australia or wherever it may be, you know. So we just want to help people make the right decisions, because there are a lot of dodgy places out there. And, you know, I've been one of those people. I've been sucked in. I've spent lots of money and come out with nothing. So we're just trying to help people make more educated guesses through what our research and what we've, you know, found throughout the rookies and during that journey.
That's great, because like one of the things that I've always struggled with was so pretty much exactly what you guys have both said there is so obviously trying to find the right resources, because one of the main things or best advice I could also that I would always like to give to students is that sometimes you just have to know also when it is time to invest. Like, a lot of people like to get things like information for free, and obviously it's great, but one of the biggest things that's helped me out, and I've literally just done it, I think I did it, was it, I think 2 weeks ago now, so I invested in the tutorials from the Gnomon workshop, so because basically for ages and ages I've been always trying to find information on V-Ray and like the correct rendering, because film has a certain look that I have to be able to achieve, and I couldn't find, I guess, the correct information. And I then realized, well, I'm just going to have to start investing in terms of like putting my money towards, I guess, the correct tutorials to help me get where I need to go. And that's also like another, I guess, important thing that students have to learn as well, is that not everything that you need is accessible until you start investing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
I was just going to say something there, just quickly, Geese. But, you know, I think, you know, with us and what we're setting up with the new platform, you know, you come in as a user type. So you might be somebody that's a complete novice to somebody that's in their final year of study. So essentially, when you register on our platform, you'll come in as a user type. So for us, it's about, like we've been stressing, it's about the journey and helping people that, depending on what level they're at, is to go, hey, you know what, you just need a little bit more help. And we want to be able to work with, you know, people that are doing amazing stuff online, to be able to go, you know what, check out these guys over here doing amazing work. You know, you can invest in that course and you'll get exactly what you're looking for, and you'll be that's going to fast track you to this point, right? So that's kind of the backbone behind the new Rookies platform for us, is just being able to, you know, help join the dots for people on this journey to becoming, you know, a rookie that first year when they're in and they're off. They've already, you know, it's that one brick that I was talking about. Once they've got that, they can leverage off that and they're away, they're flying, right? So for us, it's that journey to that point that we're just helping people with.
Hello?
Hello? You there?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, gotcha.
Sorry, it seemed like it cut out on my end there. I was like, what's going on? Right. I was like,
that was such a good answer that you just blew your head off.
I've messed with my answer. How good's that? Even Mac is speechless for the first time.
It was just because it was like, do you know you have that awkward pause? And it's just like, okay. That was brilliant. Awesome. Thank you so much for saying that. Another quick, I guess, to finish off the podcast, it'd be great just to get out some important dates, because so I think the 7th of March is when the Rookies Awards starts again this year. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Every year it's March 7. It's the one thing we lock in, and yes, absolutely. It doesn't matter what day it falls on. That's where it goes. And then so you have about 10 weeks to actually submit your entry. We close things off about March 15th.
Right.
And then from there, we sort of launch into, obviously all the judging and announcing finalists, and then winners sort of get more announced sort of late June. You've got about 10 weeks to get your things in. And really, I mean, we always get a big surge. Obviously, people come in and just go, boom, I'm going to drop everything in, but realize that there is a bit of time. And once you submit your work to the Rookie Awards, like, it's kind of locked in, because that gets sent off to the judges. So take your time. If your demo reel and your portfolio is ready, put it in there, build it out. We've got a crazy cool project builder this time. Like, it's pretty impressive. Like, I even want to jump on and start adding my old stuff, because it's a really cool platform. But get your stuff on there, make sure it's ready, pick the categories that kind of suit your skill, like where you want to go work. If you want to work in games, hit up the game design and development category. If you want to work in architecture or visualization, like, go in there, or like visual effects or animation, whatever it is, find your category. And there's honestly something there for everything. We've got film of the year, game of the year. We've even got a couple of other ones in there, like Young Guns for the kids who are under 18 who are just absolutely. Absolutely. So that's just to help give a kickstart to some of these kids that are just at school, like maybe under 18, that are just they're not even thinking about a career, but they're like, you know what, I actually kind of like this stuff. So it's to help them start their journey, because the whole idea is that you start your journey, and it should be from that moment that you sort of figure, oh my God, this is cool. I discovered something amazing, some amazing software or some cool film or movie or game that just said to me, holy cow, I need to be doing this. And that's the journey. We want you from there. And, if you want the support, like, you can stay on as a hobbyist and do all this stuff forever and just enjoy the community. But we're purely, like, the biggest backbone there is obviously, as we've talked about, getting someone to industry.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on. Like, it really means a lot. It was such an awesome podcast. I'm not sure there's anything else you guys want to chip in on, but that was amazing. Thanks once again.
Yeah, look, thanks for having us, Ross. That was cool. Like, we really enjoyed that, and thanks for taking the time to hear us ramble on.
That's okay. I always like to make sure that I give everyone the time they deserve to talk. But like I said, so anyone who's listening, make sure to check out the Rookies Awards. I'll put all the descriptions in the below. I'm also going to be, as always, I always create a slideshow on the back for YouTube and so forth. If you're new to the podcast as well, so we're on, I think, 11 different platforms now. Let's double check. So if you're new and you want to, I guess, listen while you're in the car or whatever, so we're currently on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and Stitcher. So make sure to check those platforms out. It'll be much appreciated. Don't forget to leave a like, and obviously subscribe. That'll be awesome. And we will see you in the next video, and thanks for listening.